Tomoe Gozen was history's ultimate legendary female samurai warrior. She charged into battle riding a wild stallion. She easily decapitated powerful male enemies in combat. She commanded massive armies of elite male warriors. She possessed unmatched skill with the samurai sword. She survived the most chaotic civil wars alive. She became an immortal icon of ultimate courage. Her combat prowess terrified the most hardened warlords. Today, her epic tales still inspire global awe. This is the breathtaking chronicle of her fury. The legendary female warrior was born around the year 1157 during the turbulent final decades of ancient Japan's Heian period. She grew up during a time when the powerful Minamoto and Taira clans were locked in a brutal struggle for absolute control of the nation. Her father was a loyal retainer who proudly served the nomadic, fiercely independent warrior clans of the central mountainous regions. As an infant, she met the young exiled Prince Minamoto no Yashinaka because his father had been murdered in a bloody coup. Tomoe's father secretly hid the vulnerable young prince in the rugged mountains of Shinano Province to keep him safe from assassins. Tomoe and Yashinaka grew up closely together as childhood siblings, running wildly through the treacherous, heavily forested alpine peaks. She quickly proved to be just as physically strong, fast, and aggressive as any of the young boys training in her village. She received intense combat training in the traditional martial arts of the elite Onimusha warrior class from a very young age. She became an exceptionally skilled rider who could effortlessly tame and break the most aggressive and wild mountain warhorses. She fully mastered the massive long bow, allowing her to shoot enemies with absolute precision while riding at a full gallop. If you love these incredible tales of pure warrior spirit, please like this video right now. Ancient historical texts describe her as a remarkably beautiful woman with pale white skin, long black hair, and charming facial features. Warlords recognized her immense tactical genius, stating she was a warrior worth 1,000, ready to face a demon or a god. When the Grand Genpei War erupted in 1180, Yashinaka raised a massive rebel army and placed Tomoe on the front lines. She wore magnificent heavy iron armor, carried an oversized samurai sword, and swung a deadly, long-reaching naginata polearm. During her very first major campaign in 1181, she single-handedly rode into a crowd of enemies and collected their severed heads. She commanded a massive force of over 1,000 elite mounted samurai warriors during the strategic northern operations. She led a legendary vanguard troop during the historic Battle of Kurikara, completely outmaneuvering a massive Taira army. The creative Mongols and regional clans watched in horror as her disciplined cavalry units drove thousands of burning cattle into their camp. The brilliant strategy completely shattered the enemy forces, allowing Yashinaka's army to rapidly conquer the ancient imperial capital of Kyoto. Following the supreme victory, Yashinaka appointed her as his first captain, trusting her above all his other male generals. She was technically his trusted mistress and combat partner rather than his political wife, earning her the royal title of Gozen. She routinely rode unscathed down perilous, near vertical mountain descents that terrified the most experienced male cavalrymen. Her continuous success on the battlefield triggered massive waves of intense jealousy among rival leaders of her own clan. The supreme leader of the Minamoto clan, Yoritomo, grew deeply afraid of Yashinaka's growing power and declared him a traitor. Yoritomo unleashed a massive army of tens of thousands of elite samurai to eliminate Tomoe and her master permanently. Tomoe stood firmly by Yashinaka's side as his forces were slowly pushed out of the capital during weeks of urban warfare. They retreated toward Lake Biwa, where they were ruthlessly cornered by an overwhelming army at the Battle of Awazu. The chaotic battle took place in the dead of winter, turning the battlefield into a trap of freezing mud and deep snow. Tomoe charged repeatedly into the enemy ranks, her bright armor covered in mud and the fresh blood of her attackers. A famous rival samurai named Hatakama Shigetada rode up to capture her, but retreated in panic to avoid losing to a woman. Shigetada openly admitted that dying by her blade would bring eternal, irreversible shame upon his family's noble name. She aggressively broke through multiple defensive lines of 2,000 riders, cutting down anyone who stood in her path. The brutal slaughter continued for hours until Yashinaka's massive army was reduced to just 5 solitary survivors. Tomoe remained among the final 5 standing, her weapons entirely chipped and her warhorse breathing heavily from exhaustion. Yashinaka looked at his bleeding companion and softly ordered her to abandon the field and flee toward the eastern provinces. He stated that his wounds were fatal and he desired to commit ritual suicide in absolute solitude to protect his honor. He explicitly told her that would be a deep historical disgrace if people whispered that he died accompanied by a woman. Tomoe was deeply heartbroken by his words, but determined to perform one final, legendary feat of combat before obeying his command. She calmly waited on her horse until a group of 30 elite riders arrived to capture the remaining fugitives. The group was led by a famously powerful and arrogant warrior from Musashi named Morashijonda, known for his brute strength. Tomoe let out a ferocious battle cry, kicked her horse into a full sprint, and charged directly at Onda's position. She effortlessly dodged his heavy, thrusting spear, rode up tightly alongside his horse, and grabbed him by the throat. Using her supernatural physical strength, she dragged the massive armored warrior completely off his saddle onto her own lap. She pinned him motionless against the pommel of her saddle, twisted his neck, and cleanly sheared his head off with a dagger. She proudly held his severed head high in the air before throwing it contemptuously into the dirt at the feet of his men. The remaining 30 enemy riders were so utterly traumatized by the sight that they froze in absolute terror and confusion. Tomoe utilized the moment of panic to discard her heavy helmet and blood-soaked armor, blending into the surrounding trees. Make sure to subscribe to Stickman Chronicles because we drop epic history content every single day. Alternative historical records suggest she was eventually captured by a powerful general named Wada Yashimori after her escape. Yashimori was so deeply awed by her bravery that he married her, and she reportedly gave birth to a legendary giant warrior son. She taught her children the strict art of military survival while instilling a deep respect for spiritual peace. She routinely met with wandering poets to ensure they accurately recorded the names of the common soldiers who fell in battle. She once refused to meet an imperial messenger because she believed political titles were completely meaningless in the eyes of death. She spent hours practicing her calligraphy, using the brush to find a sense of inner harmony after years of brutal war. She regularly visited the high mountain shrines to offer sacred prayers for the protection of all travelers and orphans. She believed that a sword was only a tool of final resort, and that true strength was born from quiet mental discipline. She openly criticized the corrupt court nobility for drinking expensive sake, while the peasant classes suffered from starvation. She lived in absolute harmony with the natural environment, gathering her own wild herbs and firewood from valleys. She carved small wooden status pieces to honor the memories of the 5 brave warriors who stood with her at Awazu. She became an advisor to local village elders, helping them settle complex land disputes using her sharp, unbiased intellect. Following the tragic death of her family in a later rebellion, she completely renounced the violent path of the warrior. She chopped off her long black hair, took sacred vows, and became a humble Buddhist nun under the name of Hitawano. She built a small, isolated thatched hut near the gravesite of her first love, Yashinaka, to perform daily memorial services. She spent her long, peaceful twilight years in deep meditation, praying for the souls of every warrior she had slain. She lived to the incredible age of 91, outliving every single general who had participated in the Genpei War. She refused to ever touch a steel blade again, claiming her hands had spilled far too much blood in her youth. Her unique, battle-tested armor was reverently brought to a sacred shrine where it remains a symbol of national heritage. She successfully proved to medieval Japan that military merit and strategic brilliance were entirely independent of gender. She single-handedly shattered the strict patriarchal traditions of her era through absolute, undisputed battlefield dominance. Her name became an eternal legend, celebrated for centuries in traditional no-theater productions and elaborate kabuki plays. During the peaceful Edo period, her likeness became one of the most popular subjects for beautiful ukiyo-e woodblock prints. Modern historians and archaeologists still study her recorded exploits to understand the elite role of the early Onimusha. Her inspiring legacy directly paved the way for future generations of Japanese women to train in defensive martial arts. Today, vibrant historical parades feature young women dressed in her iconic armor to honor her memory across Japan. Her epic life continues to heavily inspire major characters in global anime shows, complex video games, and modern novels. She successfully rose from an obscure mountain daughter to become the most iconic female samurai in human history. She demonstrated that a lone warrior's sheer will could completely terrify an entire army of hardened military veterans. Her unique blend of equestrian mastery and archery heavily influenced defensive training protocols for generations. She spent her entire youth working tirelessly to defend the freedom and the ultimate honor of her chosen clan. The master martial artist left behind an eternal legacy of unmatched physical bravery and supreme combat authority. She successfully balanced the complex honor codes of the early Bushido lifestyle with a later life of peaceful devotion. Her life remains history's greatest example of ultimate female warrior power maintained through absolute combat confidence. From her quiet youth in the Alpine provinces to her final legendary duel at Awazu, she was completely unmatched. She permanently redefined the boundaries of battlefield intimidation and female leadership for many generations to come. Her complex equestrian and archery achievements are still studied by martial arts historians around the globe today. She remains an immortal icon of Japanese chivalry who chose raw combat glory over a submissive lifestyle at every turn. The world will likely never see another female commander quite like the crouching tigress of the Minamoto. His memory continues to inspire millions of people through books, television historical documentaries, and artwork. She began her life as a simple provincial daughter and ended it as a timeless legend of samurai history. Her legendary exploits remind us that true courage leaves a permanent mark upon the very culture of a nation. Smash that like button if you were blown away by this ancient legendary female samurai. Subscribe to Stickman Chronicles right now to join our growing community of history lovers. We upload brand new history videos every single day, so you never miss an epic tale. Leave a comment below letting us know which historical figure we should cover in our next video. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into ancient warrior spirit. See you tomorrow for another wild story on Stickman Chronicles.